Happy Saturday and welcome into the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me every Saturday morning, 10 to 12. Let's do this thing, Alex. Such an exciting way to start off our day. We got BYU Baylor about to kick off. But first, how was your week, man?
Week was good. We're going to jump into the highlight of the week. I think my highlight was probably my dad made some carne asada. And look, I love my mom's cooking, don't get me wrong, but the chef in the house is my father. And anytime he makes anything, you know you're in for a treat. And so this past week he made some carne asada. I got to indulge in some fine eating, Christian.
Was it during the week or was it like a Sunday barbecue sort of thing?
It was like a Sunday barbecue sort of thing.
Oh my
gosh. The whole
gosh.
family came over. My siblings came over. It was a fun time.
I know how special that is. I got you.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'm jealous. Man. For those that have never indulged in a Sunday afternoon barbecue with some carne on the grill, man.
It's amazing.
With the char from the flame broiled.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I'm getting hungry now.
Some good tacos.
It's early.
That sounds real good, dude. Let's see. My highlight of the week. I'll go to Monday. I was able to go to the Utah Hockey Club preseason game on Monday, and that was, oh my gosh, it was so exciting. And I can't even describe what an amazing experience it was for something brand new. It's definitely a new sport, but in a good way. And just the vibe around the stadium, I think everybody was happy to be there. Liam O'Brien, Spicy Tuna, he came out and he threw punches right away, and the crowd went crazy. There were a couple fights, and it's so fun to get to learn this new sport. Utah Hockey Club, they won 3-2 on Monday. That was against the Kings. Overtime victory. Clayton Keller popped one in the net like 20 seconds into OT. Last night, the Hockey Club played in Vegas for their third preseason game. Their first loss, they lost to Vegas 5-2. But I can tell you what, Alex, this state is so excited for Utah Hockey Club to be here.
The state is excited. The players are excited. The people involved with the hockey club are excited. Everybody's excited, Christian. And you can hear every time, whether it's Bill Armstrong, whether it's a player, whoever is at the microphone, and they're talking about Monday night and talking about that environment, they're always comparing it to playoff atmosphere.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Which is so exciting to hear.
Absolutely. And everybody involved with the Utah Hockey Club, you can tell absolutely loves it. And that in turn makes the fans excited.
And I don't want to set my expectations too high because this is a team that, frankly, missed out on the playoffs last year. They were close, but they didn't make it. But I'm telling you what, man, the boost that this team is getting from just the environment at the Delta Center, just the fact that they have, there were 11,000 fans at a preseason game. And they're going to have sold-out games, and that's something that they did not have playing at a college stadium in Arizona. They had a locker room that was basically just an open room with a circle of chairs. But now they feel like a real professional sports team. And I think that is a very underrated boost, like I said, to the club. And I'm not saying that they're going to come in and be world beaters and win the Stanley Cup right away. It would be delusional to say that. But I do think that just coming in and having this real genuine, palpable excitement, it's going to probably lead to, I'm just going to say off the bat, maybe 5 to 10 more wins than they would have had otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, big credit to everybody involved for basically building this from the ground up, getting everything ready for the puck drop here in the preseason. Obviously, still got a little bit to go for the first official game of the NHL season for the Utah Hockey Club, but everything looks fantastic. Everything got ready so quickly, and massive, massive props to everybody involved.
Oh my gosh, huge shout out to everybody. We've got kickoff in Waco. Baylor kicking it off. Obviously, we can't sit here and do play-by-play as much fun as that would be. It's a touchback, though. Let's start the show off talking a little BYU Baylor, Alex. I know that Jake Hatch and Alex Curie just gave us the amazing Cougar pregame show, as they always do every Saturday. But let's start off talking a little Cougar football, man. What do you think BYU has to do to win this game after such a big win last week against Kansas State?
Defense. Defense and special teams is what elevated BYU to that massive, shocking win over Kansas State last week. They got to replicate that defensive performance against Baylor today. Well, it's a tough environment, man. It's hot.
Yes.
As someone who's been in that stadium, it is hot on that turf. You can feel the turf radiating. So manage the heat, manage the emotions, and get the defense right. If the defense comes out firing right off the bat, I like BYU's chances in Waco.
I'd say it's a good thing. Obviously, they're 11 a.m. kickoff in Texas, 10 a.m. here. And there was a lot of talk about that and how that would affect the team, especially after having a late night game last week against Kansas State. Now they have to adjust their schedule. Players were talking about having to wake up, at about 6 a.m. throughout the week to prepare for this. I mean, it's not early, but, the early slate of college football. BYU's still looking for their first. They have not won a road conference game since they joined the Big 12. So this would be a big milestone for the Cougars. But I agree. I mean, what an amazing performance last week against Kansas State, a team that was one of the favorites to win the conference coming in. And I'm definitely not counting the Wildcats out just yet, but that was a ranked team, a top 15 team coming into Provo. And everybody was talking about how close of a game it would be. They'd say, oh, yeah, there's a chance the Cougars could win because of home field advantage. But, dude, BYU came out and just dominated offense, defense, and special teams. And the offensive numbers didn't pop, but that's because their average starting field position was at the Kansas State 44-yard line.
And that's, again, massive credit to the positions that your defense puts you in. There was a couple of turnovers, a couple of big interceptions, especially in that second quarter. And then the position where your special teams put you, there was massive plays on special teams for BYU. And like, you can talk to all the BYU fans, and I think this team feeds off that energy. That the energy inside LaVell Edwards Stadiums last week was absolutely phenomenal. They fed off of it all game, and they came up with a massive win over one of the top-ranked teams in the country.
So you're saying defense is the key to victory here for BYU. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to say offense. And, I just said that BYU did what they, were supposed to do last week because they had such good field position. Alex, I just want to see more consistency from this BYU offense. And Jake Retzlaff, no turnovers last week as far as I'm aware. And that's good. We want to continue to see
Much better from Jake Retzlaff. We were talking about it, Christian, a couple weeks ago, where we wanted to see BYU clean up the turnovers. We wanted to see Retzlaff turn the ball over less. And I think, obviously, that played a massive, massive part into that Kansas State win. Now here we got BYU and this offense marching down the field, looking good early in this game against Baylor.
My big worry about today, though, is the running back depth. Sione Moa stand out last week. He had a pretty good game. Let's pull up his stats here quickly.
Sione Moa looked great, and then, I still think we need to see more from a guy like Miles Davis, and Haunga so far, has done some nice things for this BYU offense as well.
So Moa, 15 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown last week. Unfortunately, he is out for today, which is a big storyline coming in. So now BYU's depth at running back, Hinckley Ropati is back. Miles Davis will be spelling him, and then Enoch Nawahine will probably get some carries as well. LJ Martin's still out. I believe it's a lower body injury, and that's not looking good for him. He suffered that in game 1, I believe, and he has not been back since.
LJ Martin's big loss. We were talking about how he was going to be the guy in this running offense, in this running back room for the BYU Cougars. Big loss not to have him out there, but I'm echoing probably the same thing I say every week. We need to see a little bit more in the run game. Miles Davis, Hinckley Ropati, they need to step up and really take control of this running back room. And BYU on the board early.
There we go. What a touchdown pass from Retzlaff to Miles Davis out of the backfield. Looking real good there. Kind of hit him on the back shoulder, but wide open field for Miles Davis. And I think that's huge for BYU to get on the board first on the road. Really set the tone early. Scoring on the first drive, that gives you a much higher chance of victory, really. If you can get out there, get the first points on the board, on the road, that's awesome. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but setting the tone of this game, huge for BYU to walk into Baylor, win I don't know if they won the coin toss, but they received the opening kick, and then they march down the field, pretty easily. It didn't look like they struggled at all. So great job by Retzlaff and the rest of this BYU offense to get the first points of this game, 7-0 BYU.
Good start. Great start. And it looked like BYU was just having very little issue marching down the field. A couple good catches from Darius Lassiter, coming up big in extending these drives, and then obviously Miles Davis out of the backfield able to get into the end zone. Fantastic start for BYU and Baylor.
And that's awesome to have Darius Lassiter a part of this offense. And I know he talked earlier in the week about him and Chase Roberts and kind of the 1A, 1B punch that they form at receiver for BYU. And we haven't seen a game yet where they both have, big eye-popping numbers. But BYU doesn't necessarily need that. They just know that they have two dudes on the outside that are just consistent. And not just those guys. I mean, they have a really deep receiver room. I don't want to leave anybody out, but definitely Chase Roberts and Darius Lassiter are two of the real key parts of this BYU offense. And I think they're going to be leaned on today, going back to the lack of running back depth. And not only the lack of depth, but really the Cougars have just kind of struggled to move the ball on the ground all year so far. So having some guys like Lassiter and Roberts that can get involved with the quick passing game as sort of an extension of the run game, that's been huge.
And I mean, you don't necessarily need to have the craziest eye-popping numbers in the case of Chase Roberts and Lassiter, because I think you get enough touches for the two. One of them is going to make a big play. One of them is going to make something happen just because they have that ability, right? Roberts and Lassiter are two phenomenal receivers, really great players for the BYU Cougars. And so as long as you're getting the ball to them eventually, they're going to make a big play and they're going to come up huge for this offense.
BYU's defense continues to be the heart and soul of this team, and it's been so much fun, Alex. Last week they held Kansas State to 139 yards through the air, did give up 228 rushing yards, but that was on 43 carries, so really the average, 5.3 yards a carry, I'm not worried about that, and especially that's what Kansas State does. That's pretty much all they can do. Avery Johnson isn't really known for his arm, but again, holding Kansas State to no touchdowns is such a phenomenal effort by BYU's defense. And I think they're in for a feast today against Baylor's offense that really isn't, I don't want to pass them off as anything bad, but they're nothing. They're definitely not as scary as Kansas State's offense.
Absolutely. I want to give Baylor a little bit of credit because I do think that they have improved from where they were last year, but they're still nowhere near, I think, where they need to be competitive in the Big 12. And so I think, of course, if BYU can just continue those phenomenal defensive performances that we've seen from the Cougars through 4 games, they'll have a fun time against this Baylor offense.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll keep checking in on this BYU game, definitely with scoring updates, and then hopefully we'll catch halftime and we can do a little halftime update as we go on. But Alex, I want to transition and talk about Utah. Utah taking on Arizona tonight. Late game, 8:15. They're with the late kickoff this week, and it's a big game. And we mentioned broken record earlier. Same storyline every week. We don't know if Cam Rising is going to play. And it's to the point now where I think we can just assume it's going to be Isaac Wilson until we see otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete Thamel of ESPN coming out earlier this morning saying that, again, Cam Rising is a game-time decision versus Arizona tonight. So we're repeating the same thing. We're in the same spin cycle that we were. And again, man, I want to give a lot of props and a lot of flowers to Isaac Wilson, because I think Isaac Wilson went down to Stillwater, did what he had to do to make sure that a top-ranked Utah was able to take down another ranked opponent. And as a freshman, I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
What just happened there? Is that Tyler Batty with another interception?
Interception.
Mangelson. Yeah, batted ball at the line of scrimmage. Mangelson is able to bring it down. I think that was Baylor's first offensive play of the game. It might have been their second, but we just finished talking about BYU's defense, forcing a turnover there. It could get ugly for the Bears quickly. But anyways, yeah, back to Utah. Isaac Wilson has looked good, and he's improved every week that we've seen him get action, and I think that's huge. And I know I, for one, had a lot of questions about why Isaac Wilson was the backup quarterback, but he's shown throughout his playing time why this coaching staff trusts in him, why they believe in him, and the potential is there. And as I said, he continues to get better every week.
He does continue to get better every week. But one of the things that I want Wilson to work on is those turnovers, man. Eventually, those are going to catch up to Utah. Kyle Whittingham even said in his weekly press conference this week that they have to clean up the turnovers. 2 interceptions against Oklahoma State. And I mean, in the end, Utah is able to pull off the results. And I think that has a lot to do with how well the Utah defense played in Stillwater. But Isaac Wilson has to clean up the interceptions. They have to clean up the turnovers. But other than that, I really like what I've seen from Isaac Wilson.
He's appeared in every game so far. 550 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. What I do like about Isaac Wilson is that he's done a great job of really getting the receiver room involved. And Dorian Singer was a name that he obviously had high expectations coming in, but he hadn't done a whole lot throughout the first couple games. That changed last week, Alex. Pulling up Dorian Singer's stats last week, 7 catches, 95 yards. I thought he had a pretty big impact, especially early on in the game. Big chain mover. And I think it's clear that he and Isaac Wilson have a chemistry. And then Isaac Wilson is still working on things with Brant Keithy. It looks like there were a couple timing issues where maybe Brant didn't realize the ball was going to come to him or he wasn't ready. But I don't know. As I said, it's a work in progress, and it's hard on the other hand, especially when you are a skill player and you don't know who your quarterback is going to be all week. Especially, I don't know what the situation looked like this week, but I know last week before the Oklahoma State game, Cam Rising started the week off getting the QB1 reps, and everybody thought that he was going to play. And then that changed late in the week, and they started giving Isaac Wilson all the reps. That can be incredibly hard if you are a receiver or tight end on this Utah roster, not knowing who's going to be throwing you the ball on Saturdays.
Yeah, and I mean, in turn, a massive credit to Dorian Singer, because I think last week we saw glimpses of the Dorian Singer that we've been waiting to see come in for Utah. That catch on the helmet, absolutely phenomenal.
What an awesome catch.
And that's the Dorian Singer that I think Utah fans were expecting and are expecting. And so him getting the 95 yards, the 7 catches, a lot of targets going his way. Good to see Dorian kind of finally start taking those steps. I thought he was a little bit underwhelming to start the season, but if we can continue to get Dorian Singer involved in this offense, I think Utah will have no problems moving the ball down the field, even with Isaac Wilson.
Chase Roberts with the BYU touchdown, and the extra point is good. BYU up 14-0 already at Baylor. But yeah, I think I definitely agree. The first couple games, it was like, okay, where is Dorian Singer? This guy who had a lot of hype coming in, and he hadn't really lived up to those expectations. Last week was kind of his breakout game. Not quite 100 yards, but again, 7 catches, including that highlight reel catch where it was like that helmet catch in the Super Bowl a long time ago. Just able to secure it against his helmet, and I thought it was a catch right away. They had to review it, and the ball he didn't lose control of the ball as he hit the ground, so that's why they ruled it a catch. But this is a big game for Utah, especially looking at who the opponent is. Alex, last year they played, and Arizona kind of kicked Utah's butts, 42-18, including a 51-yard deep shot to standout receiver Tech McMillan with 30 seconds left in the game. And I know that left a bad taste in a lot of the Utah players' mouths. It left a bad taste in Kyle Whittingham's mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And frankly, though, it was a butt kicking in a game where that's where it felt to me, it was like, oh yeah, the season's over for Utah. And I know last year was hard because Cam Rising was out for the year by that point, and they were kind of struggling to find a groove with Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson at quarterback. But it was really that loss to Arizona where it felt like, okay, yeah, this season's kind of over.
Utah, I mean, they started all right. They did what they needed to do to get some wins under their belt. But then I think teams started to realize that this offense really struggled without Cam Rising. And I think Arizona was the first team to really take advantage of that. No one's going to forget that 42-18 loss last year because of the McMillan catch late in the game.
Oh, yeah. 30 seconds in the game, running a go route.
Running up the score. You could tell. You can tell even the players don't forget. And so it is a little bit of a wrench tonight against Utah, but I think mostly for Utah, they just need to go out there and continue to show that why they were projected the number one team in the Big 12. They need to continue to show why everybody, as far as coaches and the media polls go for the preseason, why they were so high on this team. Even now without Cam Rising, this team is putting on some good things on tape as far as offense goes. The defense, of course, has been absolutely tremendous through the first, 1/4 of the season. But now you're at home against another team who can potentially be one of the better teams in the Big 12. You just got to go out there and you got to continue to show why you are the favorite.
Yeah, Utah's defense has been awesome all over. Van Fillinger, defensive end, second in the country right now with 5.5 sacks. And this is going to be a fun matchup because Arizona's offense can be lethal at times. We mentioned Tet McMillan, one of the best receivers in the country right now. You look at his week 1 stats against New Mexico, 10 catches, 304 yards, and 4 touchdowns. On the season, he's totaled 23 catches, 453 yards, and then those 4 touchdowns are all he's scored all year. But I'm interested to see what Morgan Scalley's game plan is. Do you trust Zamiah Vaughn to basically go one-on-one with Tet McMillan and then shut down the rest of the offense? And I really am interested. I can't wait to see how Utah's defense comes out and plays this because they really are lethal all over. I can't really think of a weak spot on the Utah defense. So if they are able to take Tet McMillan out with just one player, one corner, and maybe a safety, maybe bracket him if you need, I think that Arizona is going to struggle moving the ball if Utah can take away Tet McMillan.
I think you also can't forget about Noah Fifita because he is such a phenomenal weapon offensively. Great quarterback for Arizona. 863 yards on the season, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. But Kyle Whittingham brought up a good point. In that loss to Kansas State, that 31-7 loss prior to the bye week, they forced Fifita and this offense to run.
Yeah.
They forced them to run. They took away the passing game. They forced them to run, and that's where Arizona struggled. So, in turn, Utah has been absolutely phenomenal in stopping the run.
Oh, yeah.
If they can take away the passing game, they allowed 237 yards to Oklahoma State last week. But if you can take away the passing game for Arizona, force them to put the ball on the ground, get them to run, I absolutely love Utah's chances in this one. You take away Noah Fifita's biggest strength, and that's going to be passing the ball. You force them to run, and then Utah's biggest strength is probably stopping the run.
Yeah, and you look at college, and a lot of teams want to be able to have that run game. And that's, like you said, Utah's bread and butter. So if you can take away the aspect, if you can make them one-dimensional and, again, take away their biggest playmaker at receiver and say, okay, let's see if you can out-physical us, which we know the answer. Nobody can, right? I really think it's going to be a good game for Utah tonight. It's what are they calling it, a blackout at Rice Eccles Stadium? Dark mode.
Speaking of which, Christian, those new black throwbacks that they're debuting tonight, the best jersey, I think.
You think so?
Absolutely. I love it. It's probably my favorite Utah jersey, and as soon as they put it on EAFC College Football, EA College Football 25, I'm never using any other jerseys for Utah. It is going to be black jerseys all around because those black throwbacks are incredible.
I agree. I think they look clean, and there's a lot to be said about a night game at Rice Eccles Stadium. We saw it last week with BYU at Lavelle Edwards. There's nothing like playing under the lights, dark skies, up in the beautiful mountain scenery. And I know that Utah fans haven't forgotten about last year's game. I know that Utah players, Utah coaching staff, I can guarantee you, Alex, Utah's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, and that is dangerous.
Especially under those Rice Eccles lights.
Yeah. So the environment at Rice Eccles Stadium is going to be electric tonight. Can't wait to see what Utah does. BYU just had a big hit in the backfield, really shutting down this Baylor offense. Again, we will continue to update you throughout this game, BYU at Baylor. But we're up against it. We got to take a break. On the other side, let's talk about Jazz Media Day. Yesterday, we got to hear from Utah Jazz owner and front office members Ryan Smith, Justin Zanuck, and Danny Ainge. We'll talk a little bit about the Jazz season, what to expect, and some of the big comments we heard yesterday that I think are worth talking about. So, again, that's on the other side. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles here. Man, BYU is looking real good.
Oh, yeah.
Looking to score again. They're at about Baylor's 43-yard line. We'll see if they can put one in, but that defense continues to get stops, and the offense is looking good. There's Retzlaff taking it, picking up the first down and a little bit more with his legs, but this is exciting to see, dude.
It's good to see. I think this is probably, I want to say, the best I've seen the BYU offense look all season long.
Yeah, and it is still really early to tell. First quarter, about midway through, but yeah, it's very encouraging to see BYU again firing on all cylinders, because last week against Kansas State, that was so huge for them, and that's why they were able to blow Kansas State out of the water. But I was saying that's not something you can really expect every week, to have offense, defense, and special teams clicking the way that it was last week. But so far, throughout the first 11 minutes of this game, I mean, the offense and defense has looked great.
And in turn, looking at that Baylor side, a very good point was made here during the break, Christian. This Baylor team, they looked a lot better against Colorado. I thought they played a really good game against Colorado. Obviously, that Hail Mary, the overtime situation there last week where they end up losing, not the best of responses after a good performance.
Wow, getting tricky right there. Bringing the receiver in motion. I couldn't tell who that was, but then a little handoff pass. But Baylor tipped it up, no touchdown for the Cougs. But you're right, that can either, coming off a loss to a Hail Mary play, that can either light the fire underneath you or totally defeat you as a team. So we'll see if Baylor can pick things up.
Yeah, it's still early.
As this game goes on, yeah.
Still early.
I don't know. If BYU goes up 3 scores here, Baylor might find themselves down in the dumps.
3 scores in the first quarter is not good.
Not ideal.
No bueno. BYU still continue to march down the field. Retzlaff using his feet to get another first. Retzlaff.
Oh, Retzlaff in for the touchdown. Man. Look at him.
Well, there you go. There's your 3 scores.
2 big carries for Retzlaff on this drive. Over 30 yards rushing on this one drive alone. But, man, 21-0 for the Cougs with the extra point pending, I guess. But, Alex, let's talk Utah Jazz. We had some media availability yesterday with the owner, Ryan Smith, the GM, Justin Zanuck, and then CEO, Danny Ainge. And I thought it was really insightful for a couple reasons. First off, it's a quiet summer. The off-season, NBA kind of took a back seat as we got ready for college football. There wasn't a lot of Jazz news, especially with the position that the roster is in. But I think the glaring takeaway from Jazz Media Day yesterday was that this team is getting ready for a youth movement. Between this year's draft and last year's draft, 6 players taken in the first round or the very, very start of the second round. That's Taylor Hendricks, Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, and Kyle Filipowski. That's 6 dudes under the age of, I believe, 22 or 23. And so that's going to be a big part of this Jazz team, especially in seeing what these guys have.
Absolutely. This is the year, if we're going to focus on the youth movement and we're going to continue to see these young guys transition right from college to the NBA and potentially be starters for this Utah Jazz team, we're going to see who's got the chops and who doesn't this season. I feel like we're going to find out a lot of questions and a lot of answers, especially about some of these 2-year guys, to see who can really make it in this league.
One thing I thought was an interesting quote, I should say, was that, there, as I mentioned, 3 people were talking yesterday, but it was Danny Ainge. He was talking a little bit about how the veterans are going to be really important on this Jazz roster for the development of the young players. So this is what Danny Ainge had to say about that.
So last year, if you remember, those guys weren't ready to go. Only Keontae was ready. Keontae had a fantastic summer. Bryce and Taylor were injured throughout the summer, throughout summer league, and even through this time of year leading up to training camp. That was a little bit unique. They were going to start in the G League. Probably we knew that before training camp started, just because they were so far behind. Going into this year, I'm not sure we have that figured out yet as to who is going to be on the Jazz and who's going to play some games in the G League. I assume that most of them will play some, but Bryce and Taylor took big steps this summer, but also late last year after their time spent in the G League. I thought they developed pretty well, and they're even better right now.
So expecting a lot out of these year two players, and I think that it's hard to tell exactly. They're going into the second year, right? And as you just heard, Keontae George was able to play right away, but then he hurt his ankle in summer league, and then he was hot and cold as a rookie. Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh started off in the G League, and they showed potential, and then they were able to see a lot of minutes down the stretch as the season winded down. But it's so hard to evaluate what these guys are in the situation that they were in last year. And frankly, they're in a similar situation this year where there's going to be a lot of young players on the court without a lot of, how do I say this, veteran leadership. I know you've got guys like Lowry, guys like Jordan Clarkson, even Colin Sexton to an extent, but it's hard being a young player new to this league, the highest level of competition in the world, and they basically just throw you on the court and turn you loose.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we saw with Keontae George. And I think, like you mentioned, he was very hot and cold. Sometimes he would have really good games, and other times he would just kind of disappear from the games. In the case of Keontae George, but like Ainge said too, this is a big year to figure out who these guys are. This is a big year to figure out what these guys bring to the table, and it's who's going to step up and have that leadership. I think more so importantly, who's going to have which of these youngsters is going to carry a little bit of that veteran leadership, because there's going to be a lot of young guys on this court, and so they're going to need to figure out who the leader within that group is.
This is such a big season for the Jazz because, again, finding out exactly what you have in these young guys is going to be the main focus. Finding out which of these guys are going to be building pieces going forward, guys that you can continue to add around the team. But let's go back to April, the end of season press conference. Of course, the big quote that came out of that, Danny Ainge, the big game hunting thing, and that got everybody's hopes up, but nothing came of it. And Danny Ainge was asked about it yesterday, and what I thought was interesting, he deflected, and he said, I'll have Danny Ainge answer on why they didn't go big game hunting. So this is what Danny Ainge deflected to Justin Zanuck, and he said, this is what Justin Zanuck had to say.
You guys have seen how things evolve in an offseason, whether it's this one, the future ones. You can just take a look at what transactions actually transpired in the rest of the league. I think with this organization that we are extremely aggressive with pursuing any and all means necessary to make this a championship caliber roster. When those opportunities come up, we're ready for them. There weren't any. And so to sit there and not do anything, we've decided our plan was to completely throw our focus into our young guys and the best player on our roster in Lowry Markkanen. Lowry helps our young players develop. He's a developing leader. He's a guy that you can't have just a bunch of young guys trying to raise themselves. I think you've heard the quote, pups can't raise pups. So when that became apparent that we couldn't find the right pairings to add to Lowry, which we were going to do no matter what, we have to pivot the other way and develop our young guys. And that's a reflection of the market, not a reflection of what do we want to do or we're not sure. We've always had a plan, no matter what anybody said, is to develop this roster into a championship caliber one. And this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And that's something that I had kind of been saying, obviously, on air, off air, whatever. But what do you think? You said while he was talking, he sounds pretty fired up. What do you have to say about that?
He sounded fired up, man. Look, and the fan base, the Utah Jazz fan base, has been very vocal, and have used the big game hunting quote as to kind of be disappointed with the moves that were made this summer with Eubanks, with Patty Mills, with whoever else came in. They use that. The fan base has been using it to kind of throw it back at the organization's face, and so he sounded fired up, man. He was like, "Oh well, we tried, but the right deal wasn't there." And I like it, but I don't, because I do think that obviously you have to find the right deal. Whatever move you wanted to make, to bring in the quote unquote big game hunting, you had to find the right deal, and I guess in this case, if the right deal wasn't there, there's no reason to potentially lose a guy like Lowry trying to go big game hunting.
Right. You can't force something that's not there, and I think that was the biggest thing to take away from this quote and from the whole big game hunting thing in general. Like you can't just make something up, and I'd say the biggest big game that was available was Mikal Bridges, and the Jazz were in on that, it sounds like, but they had a price and they weren't willing to go over that price because they're smart. They want to maintain the flexibility that they have with the young players, with all the assets that they have, the draft picks and stuff. And there are going to be moves where they say, okay, this is worth it. And there are going to be moves where they say, okay, this is worth it at a price. And that's what they feel like Mikal Bridges was. They didn't want to throw in the sixth first-round pick or whatever. And even though, you hear, they wanted to try and do that and maybe bring in Paul George, that wasn't a guarantee. So the Jazz were smart about that. I think they were smart to kind of sit on their hands. And I think that is the thing to keep in mind going forward is the Jazz don't have to do anything. Worst case scenario, they're going to do what they're doing this year and just develop their young talent, continue to build around these young guys, and then when a move becomes available, if a move becomes available, then they're going to have the ammo to take a shot.
And I mean, that's not the worst thing to do as far as like trying to build this roster, trying to build a championship NBA team. Not the worst move. However, as a fan base, I see where the unrest comes from. I see where the unsettlement comes from as far as the fan base. Because, I mean, ever since the Ryan Smith took over the organization and has come in, there has been talks about championship, wanting to bring championships to Utah, the ambition to be great. And so far, we're still in that building phase, but it's just gonna take time.
Nobody likes losing.
Nobody likes watching
their favorite team lose. So I could get as a Jazz fan why you may be upset at the product that we've had over the last couple of seasons, but I think that might speak to just how spoiled Jazz fans have kind of been. Even though the Jazz have never won a championship, they consistently have been a winning team, and it's hard to go through a period of atrocious win totals like we've seen the last couple of years. But again, if your worst case scenario is building around the young players, building around 6 basically first round picks over 2 years with more to come, like that's still a pretty good place to be in. And I want to hear another quote from Media Day yesterday. I thought this was one of the most important things they said. Aside from the big game hunting, this is Justin Zanuck basically talking about their plan going forward.
We're probably not going 6-6, but can we develop core pieces of this team and then with all of our other assets add, or maybe something else develops or some free agent or things, it's going to be a path. So that's part of the entire plan, is why we're investing in all of our young guys right now, to give them the best opportunity to grow, to develop, so we can make some decisions. But those decisions don't have to come after the first year, the second year, the third year. We have plenty of time that way. We just have to put in the work.
Great insight from Justin Zanuck right there, and basically echoing what we've been saying. He started off that clip saying we're not going to go 6 of 6, talking about those 6 draft picks. Very unrealistic to expect all 6 of those guys to really be NBA caliber players. But if you can even hit on 3 of those guys, I mean, that's huge.
If you can hit on 3 and have a guy, I mean, go back to the draft where you draft Donovan Mitchell. He comes in his rookie year, and now he becomes one of the bigger names, one of the better figures in this league, right? If you can find just 1 or 2 of those Donovan Mitchells with those picks, I think you're set up well, especially considering if you can develop the young guys that you already have.
Patience, Alex. And I know it sucks. It's not what Jazz fans are going to want to hear, but this is the Jazz plan going forward. They basically came out and said it yesterday. Their plan is to develop these young players, sit on their assets. If a move becomes available, they will be in. They will take shots if they are there. If not, their focus is going to draft, and develop.
And that's the best thing. That's the best thing for the Jazz right now, right? You have that flexibility. You have the picks. You have the cap space. You have the ability that if something comes up, if a player decides to test free agency, if one of these superstars in this league decides to test free agency, the Jazz have the ability to say, hey, we can offer you this, or if they want a player in a trade, they have the ability to offer so much to these other teams and try to potentially get a superstar down the road. That's what I'm also getting from what Zanuck said, because it's not completely out of the picture, right? If the deal becomes available down the road, we have that flexibility to do what we want.
It can change fast. And we know that. We know how quickly things can change in the sports world. Going back to 2 years ago, watching Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell get traded and that roster getting torn down, that changed quickly for the worse. We can see things change quickly for the better in a similar situation. So, if anybody becomes available, the Jazz are going to be there at the top of the list saying, hey, look at all these picks that we have. Look at all these young players that we have. So, they're not going to guarantee anything one way or the other, but one thing they will guarantee is that they have a lot of options and they are willing to go all in for the right move. So overall, came away happy with the Jazz media availability yesterday. I think fans were frustrated with not having a plan, not knowing what the plan would be. And I don't know if the media availability yesterday was kind of catering to fans with that opinion. But they came out and basically laid their plan out, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. Monday, they're going to have some more media day stuff. We're going to hear from Will Hardy, who just got his fifth-year option picked up, by the way, and then we're going to hear from players as well. Again, that is Monday. I think it's going to be starting at 8:30, so we are going to carry that live on the KSL Sports Zone. Baylor just got on the board with the deep passing touchdown. Extra point is good. BYU still leads 21-7, 3 seconds left in the first quarter, but let's see if BYU can answer here after going up 3 scores and then giving up the one. Oh, sorry, it's a rushing touchdown. I thought it was a passing touchdown. Kind of hard to multitask here.
Hey, no, it's a good response for Baylor. Good response for Robertson to just find the hole up the middle, jump over basically the O-line. Good athleticism there from the Baylor quarterback. Jumps over the BYU D-line and then is able to find the end zone. So Baylor pulling one back here with late first quarter.
We'll see how BYU answers. Of course, we will keep you updated. If you're driving or whatever, unable to keep tabs on the game, stay tuned here. Of course, again, we'll be checking in periodically with the Cougs. Coming up next, though, Alex, we're going to get technical fouls in, one of our favorite segments of the show. And we're going to be talking MLB, something that you and I aren't well-versed in, but there were some big things that happened earlier this week that will be fun to talk about. So, again, technical fouls coming up on the other side. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
If you're coming from the street with dirty shoes on your feet, that's a technical foul. If you switch the radio to some modern music show, that's a technical foul. If you touch the thermostat,
you'll get hit with a bat.
'cause that's a technical foul.
You will feel my wrath.
That's a technical foul.
Personal foul, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
A technical foul.
Giving him the business. It's technical fouls here on the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles next to me, as we do every single Saturday, starting your morning off right. In case you don't know, technical fouls is one of our fun segments where we kind of award people in the world of sports for being silly or stupid, or sometimes it's a little serious, but we're keeping it light today. Alex, start us off. What's your technical foul?
We're going to Major League Baseball. We don't really talk about baseball here on the Saturday Show, but they deserve some technical fouls because it was a chaotic final day at the Coliseum. The Oakland A's fans were caught stealing seats out of the stadium. The pitch invaders were on the field as the Oakland A's end their time in Oakland, getting ready to move to their temporary stadium in Sacramento prior to their move to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But there was videos of fans. You can see them just ripping the seats out of their spots.
That's crazy.
Videos of police chasing down the fans who were trying to leave the stadium with those seats. They wanted a last little memento from the Coliseum, and it ended up being the chairs that they were sitting in.
I saw a video of a guy with like a drill, undrilling the seat.
Yes.
And picking it up. And it's crazy because it's not like I don't think they're tearing down the Coliseum. I haven't heard anything. Like they're keeping it there.
Yeah, no,
and so there's still going to be plenty of events there, but now they're just going to be a couple seats short, I guess.
They'll put them back eventually. I think the guys got caught. They had to put they got the seats back, I believe.
You don't think they'll let them keep the seats?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. They'll put them back eventually. But it was funny to see the videos of the guys being chased down, trying to escape with the seats at the Coliseum. The Oakland A's, very loved in the Oakland area, and so they wanted their final memory to be a stolen chair from the Coliseum.
So if you ended up with a stadium seat in your possession, I'm not going to get into how you may have come across it, but if you had some stadium chairs at your disposal, where would you put them in your house?
That's a great question because you can't really put them at your table, can you? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know if there would be a way
do
to set them
anything
at
the
your
heart
table.
wants.
I would probably try to find a way to like screw it into like a table. And to be able to sit
like a
at
dinner
it.
table.
Yeah, and use that as my chair. This is my chair. Nobody else can use it at the table.
That's what I'm thinking too. Originally, my thought would be like, oh, that would be such a cool decoration for like a man cave. You walk into this sports man cave. And oh my gosh, look, there's stadium chairs. Like, that's awesome. But then you think about it, and they're not really that comfy.
No.
And in a man cave, in an ideal man cave, you want a really comfy chair or couch to sit in where you can kick your legs up and just chill. Can't really do that with the stadium chair. So I agree, Alex. I think finding a way to get that on your dinner table or whatever, I think would be ideal. But this A's situation sucks. It's similar to what we just saw with the Arizona Coyotes in Phoenix, where the fans, they're beloved by the fans, but it's really an ownership situation that's taking the team away, and it sucks. And you feel for the fans.
And eventually, like, I think obviously the Raiders' move to Las Vegas has worked out well. Big fan base in Vegas, so I'm sure Vegas will embrace the baseball team as
100%.
well. But it does suck for Oakland because, you had the Warriors move out of Oakland a couple years ago. Now you have the Las Vegas Raiders who are now the Las Vegas Raiders. And now you're losing your A's. You've lost pretty much your
three major sports teams.
You've lost all your sports teams up there in Oakland.
Oh, my gosh. I can't even imagine the reaction if something like that were to happen here. I won't get too far into it because I don't want to put juju into the air. But that would destroy the city.
It would. It absolutely would.
All right, let's stay with the MLB here, Alex. My technical foul. We're going to go to the Chicago White Sox, and their technical foul is breaking the MLB record for most losses in a season. Can you believe it? 121 losses on the year. That included a 21-game losing streak and 2 14-game losing streaks for the White Sox. This is absolutely atrocious. They are currently one of the worst professional sports teams ever. Is that fair to ask?
I think that's right. The White Sox, I think in baseball, obviously you can go on runs where you don't win games, but I mean to go 121 losses where you lose a majority of your games, where you lose just continually losing. You have 2 14-game loss streaks. You have the 21 breaking the record. You only won 39 games.
Out of, yeah. So 24% winning percentage there. So 39 wins, 121 losses.
That's not good. This White Sox team definitely has a potential to be one of the worst teams out there.
And it was so bad. I mean, all year there were viral clips going around. You know, you have two guys running into each other face first, going for a fly ball. Like, these are professional athletes doing this type of stuff, and it's embarrassing. This loss comes to the Detroit Tigers, by the way, 4-1 loss the other day. So, yeah, bad news if you're a White Sox fan. Sorry, Ben Anderson. I know this is it's a rough time to be a Chicago White Sox fan. BYU getting the ball to about midfield. See if they can punch one in, but we're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll talk a little bit more BYU, but let's talk some NFL. We've got some pretty big updates that have local ties, so I want to talk a little bit about that. That'll be on the other side of this break. This is the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.